in terms of children, we've got kids who are basically, it's 52% of children are spending more than the recommended 2 hours per day on electronic devices.
Yeah.
And then we've got 50% of parents spending more time on electronic devices than with children.
Yeah.
And when you look at these statistics, the thing that I try and say is, what are you displacing when you've got a child looking at a screen? What are you displacing when you are spending more time on a screen than with your child? And I'm not saying this, Patrick, to shame or pass judgment or make anyone feel guilty. I am a mum, I'm a working mum, I get it. I'm living it as well, and it is hard.
Welcome to the Motherhood Clinic, a podcast about caring for mothers after childbirth, led by clinical experience and real-life stories. If you're a new mum and ever asked yourself, is what I'm going through normal? Should I be worried? Or who should I ask for help? This podcast is for you. It's for anyone navigating those early weeks, months, or even years after having a baby. Each episode brings together voices from across the motherhood journey, from clinicians, experts, and mothers from all walks of life. We're here to help you feel more empowered in your unique motherhood journey. We believe in a better start to motherhood.
Welcome to the podcast, Hannah. Really pleased to have you on. We're both going to be battling a little bit of a cold in this conversation, so forgive us if there's any coughs or sneezes as we go through. But Hannah, really pleased to have you on. You are the author of Unplugged Tots, but it's not just a book that you'll talk about, because it's actually a whole system that you've created that's resulted in the book. You specialize in really teaching how we can help our kids, tots, teens, etc., have a healthier relationship with screens, and what can we do outside of that. So I think, our audience being, new and expectant mothers, at some point we're all going to be thinking about how our kids engage with screens. It's just a fact. It's a fact of life. So today we're going to have two conversations, as we usually do. The first will be really talking about what is the problem with screens? Where does it come from? What's the context? What's the bigger picture, so that we understand our relationship with, and where it's going? And then the second conversation after this will be actually the simple how-to. What is the mindset shift as parents we need to have? How do we have a better relationship with our kids to help them wrench them away from their screens, or what do we want to do? So that's the lay of the land for today. Hannah, I'd love to give you an opportunity to give yourself, a bit of an intro about what you've done and why we're talking, and maybe set the scene for this conversation for today. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds brilliant. Patrick,
Thanks,
first
Hannah.
of all, thank you so much for inviting me on. It's an absolute joy to be talking to you and your listeners. I'm Hannah Hagon, founder and author of Unplugged Tots. And I've had a long and varied career, as my grey hair would kind of tell you. But Unplugged Tots started because of my children. So I was in corporate, I was in legal IT for a while, and I understood all of the nuances that working in corporate, working in tech, and working with people kind of bring to kind of corporate life. And then when I had my daughters and we attended a Raspberry Pi festival. So for those that don't know what Raspberry Pi is, it's a credit card sized computer designed to support children mainly with tinkering, getting into tech, electronics, being the creators of their entertainment rather than the consumers. So that side of their kind of world, the Raspberry Pi world, has kind of exploded, and it's become two slightly different factions. We've got one that's the organization, and they're now floating on the stock market. They're in so many bits of our lives that we don't actually realize. And then the other side of it is a foundation, and they still focus on supporting children age 5 and upwards with technology and things like that. So they're a really, really lovely organization to know of. And the reason I'm telling you that is that it is important. But I attended this festival with the girls, who were 2 and 4 at the time. and we were looking at all of this amazing tech. There was wearable technology, lights and LEDs, and early iterations of 3D printers and robots, like little kind of mechanical robots that are using Raspberry Pis. And 2 and 4, it's like sensory overload, so they were just in their element. And then we got to a station where we were looking at something called Scratch, which is a block coding platform. And essentially my girls at 2 and 4 couldn't read or write or use a keyboard or anything like that. So I was, there was a barrier to them being able to do these things. And well, frankly, Patrick, my mama bear came out, and I was like quite incensed by this. Why are my children not able to do this? So I basically went back, taught myself Scratch, and realized that a lot of the principles, the concepts within Scratch could be taught through play-based activities. So a lot of the principles basically revolve around something called computational thinking. I'll come on to that as we go through our discussions. And I essentially married those concepts to some of the activities that my children liked doing, which was, playing, going, exploring, cooking, things like that, things that actually would engage a child. Because I knew from my corporate experience that tech isn't going away, it's here to stay, and actually it's a really, really good enabler for change and progress. But if we can bring these children along with us using things that they're interested in, not more screens, then we can facilitate a really positive change for their future. So that all happened in 2018. Fast forward to 2024, I was doing a community event in Cambridge, and I think I was doing something with Cloud Dough, and I'll come on to Cloud Dough later because it's awesome. And basically there were 2 kids who were playing with my activities with my girls who had grown up a little bit, and they were all interacting. It was just so lovely. And then the dad was chatting to me, and he's like, "Oh, this is really good. Raspberry Pi was my baby before these 2 came along." I was talking, and the kids were playing with the children of the founder of Raspberry Pi.
Wow.
And the result of that conversation is this book.
Amazing.
So that's why I wanted to kind of get in the Raspberry Pi element at the beginning, because I think as mums, I'm just going to kind of go off on a little tangent here.
Go for it.
As mums, I think sometimes we kind of pigeonhole ourselves a little bit, and we sometimes say no to some things when perhaps we should actually say yes, because we never know when those opportunities for a massive life-changing thing will actually happen. I mean, this book has quite literally changed my life.
Incredible.
And I think if there is anyone out there listening who is in the midst of motherhood, as I was and still am, who has a passion, who has something that they actually desperately want to do, then what is stopping you?
That's incredible. Actually, the previous conversation to the one we're having now was with a lady called Alexis Sparks. And she works with her business called Executive Moms, MOM. And, a huge following, doing great. But again, and we also work with a community called Mums Who Build. They're called the Mob, MOB. It's great.
Brilliant.
And so all of both of these organizations, they look at, they're enabling mums to follow certain careers or passions or make something new, because as you're saying, motherhood is often a transition period when it comes to your relationship with work. What does the work mean for me? Am I passionate about it? Like, now I've got this whole new identity or whole new chapter, which is I'm looking after a baby and I'm also a mum. What does work mean for me? I still need to work. Maybe for most people, we need 2 working parents to keep the lights on. I've got my mortgage to pay, so I have to work. But my relationship with work is also fundamentally different. So I think that's probably a wider conversation that we can go into.
Yeah.
I'll cap that here, but I just think that's definitely a very fertile conversation to go into at another point. But this conversation around screen time, right? I mean, we've all been there. I've talked about the digital nanny that we use quite a lot. It's very topical right now as well, and I'd love to, it's fantastic. I'd love you to promote the book as well, because you've just launched, or relatively new launch, of the Unplugged Tots, something fantastic on Amazon. But it's a very topical conversation. We hear the social media ban in Australia, the conversations, in Parliament in the UK as well. And, amongst us parents, we've all talked about, this challenge that we've got. And it starts from a very young age, right? A really young age. I mean, could be I don't know how young is young. Why do you think that this is coming to that? So I'd love to explore like the context, and then let's go into, well, why is this a problem? And what are the actual real problems? But let's give just the context as it is today. Why are we talking about it so much now? It's always been a conversation, right? So what's your view on that?
So I think now we are seeing more of the behaviors that are coming out that are correlated to screen use. There's a big report from Kindred Squared, and I can send you links that you can put on the notes and stuff later. But they did a big report about basic kind of school readiness. So this is for slightly kind of older children, kind of 3, 4. I'll come on to kind of babies in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of children, we've got kids who are basically, it's 52% of children are spending more than the recommended 2 hours per day on electronic devices. And then we've got 50% of parents spending more time on electronic devices than with children.
Yeah.
And when you look at these statistics, the thing that I try and say is, what are you displacing when you've got a child looking at a screen? What are you displacing when you are spending more time on a screen than with your child? And I'm not saying this, Patrick, to shame or pass judgment or make anyone feel guilty. I am a mum. I'm a working mum. I get it. I'm living it as well. And it is hard. But there's increasing amounts of evidence that are talking about the mental health and well-being of our children, the social kind of connections that our children are missing by watching screens, and the overall humanness of growing up that's just being lost. The amount of children that are unable to hold a pencil or swipe a book rather than turn a page is phenomenal. And there is so much joy in hearing a child's laugh when you are playing with a child.
Yeah.
And that is so powerful. And I think I'm quite kind of old fashioned. I really like the idea of, playing with children and being with them and exploring their brilliant brains. But I do know and appreciate that there are people out there that A, don't know how to play, and B, are just not interested. And it's, it is whatever reason for that is, it doesn't necessarily matter. But what I think we need to understand is that the screen use that our children are having at the minute is having an impact on their mental health, their educational experiences, and it will, I believe, come out later on during kind of school age time.
Yes. Yeah.
And there, as I say, there's more and more studies going on looking at how screen use is affecting them. There's studies that are going on at Queen Mary's. I know that there's something at Cambridge as well. And I think, the evidence is going to prove that we need to make a societal shift in how we
Yeah.
use screens and use them effectively and with intent and purpose.
Yeah, yeah. It's I mean, there's a lot there that you covered there, Hannah, and it's a very it's a nuanced conversation, isn't
It
it?
really
Right.
is, yeah.
So it's very hard because we ourselves we are the transition generation, right? We are the first generation of parents that grew up without screens, but obviously have now screens, and our children are the first to be born with screens all around them, right? And so you're right, we are going to be seeing the first generation, the impact in and around now, right? The iPhone generation, whatever you want to call them, right? Um, and I also reflect on the fact that I have as much of a challenge around it, never mind our kids. You know, you have behavioral scientists, you have the top minds in the world that that the equity now is attention, right? It's
Yeah.
about how to make this thing as engaging as possible. We all talk about attention spans being terrible. Like I have a little timer on my iPhone that shows me how much screen time I've got. It's on the front page. And I always like, holy crap, like
Mhm.
4 hours. And like, you know, even I try to liberally try to cap it, but even I find it just time just melts away. Um, but it is a nuanced one, and I want to go into that nuance. I think it's important because, as you say, like we have a reaction to screen time, but that screen time can be so many things, right? I can collaborate on it, I can learn on it, I can consume, I can create, and that's part of the challenge because all we see is this behavior of someone behind a screen, which is, you know, sociologically, socially, it is a poor behavior, right? And it's a terrible one to be stuck in. But there's so much within that that could be happening. So I want to go into we've touched upon some of the problem areas that we want people to be aware of. You know, let's go into some detail around those, around whether it's developmental, neurological, social, psychological. What are those key things that we need to be so that we understand this problem properly before we then start to think about how do we address it? So when you hear, you know, some of the impact and the reason why unplugged tots exists, what are some of the key problem areas that we just need to be educated around? What are those?
So the I think one of the important things to understand is, as you kind of touched on a minute ago, is not all screen use is the same.
Mm,
And I think there's a lot of nuance around what we are actually giving our children in terms of screen use. So we have there's a wonderful lady called Dr. Fiona Aubrey-Smith who
mm,
spoke who's done a lot of research about screen use, and she's kind of come up with this theory that we've got three different times of screen use. So we've got the passive screen time, so we've got the kind of the stare and move, so we're just consuming, we're just watching TV. We've got the transactionary screen time, which is a kind of maybe like a quiz,
okay.
or we're completing some sort of procedure or something like that. So for kind of receptionish age children, maybe we're looking at, Teach Your Monster to Read, or Times Tables Rock Stars, that kind of thing. And
Hmm.
then we've got what she calls dispositionally developmental screen time, which is essentially where we're getting our children to think and act on something. So we're thinking critically. So I
Yeah.
mentioned at the very beginning, Scratch, like this block coding thing, that is getting children to think critically, to think logically, and to kind of plan out what they're trying to do. So it's not just a consumption thing, it's actually you're using screens to create. And I
Mm,
think that's a really important distinction to make, is being intentional with the screen use that we give our children will help us understand what the outcome we want is. So if we want, you know, to promote face-to-face connection, but we also have to work, then that
mm,
face-to-face connection, could that be an educationally appropriate program
mm.
that's suitable for our child? Something that's slow paced, something that's not got many fast changing screen, or you know what I mean, fast paced movements.
Yes.
Maybe it's, as a Zoom chat with a family member. you know, because we are all, as you said at the very beginning, we're all busy. We're all trying to keep our heads above water. And
Yeah.
sometimes it is the only way to actually get something done is to pop a child in front of a screen because of the age and stage that they are. I think
Yes.
the other thing is that because of, society in general, and the way that we all are, we are very judgmental about other people. And I
Hmm.
think we need to stop that for a start, because
Yeah.
we never ever know what is going on within like that family's dynamic,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how people are kind of juggling their individual boats in the sea of parenting that we're all kind of navigating. And
Yes.
I think that's a really, really important point that I really want to raise. We just don't know
Yeah.
what's going on in that family dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've certainly been there. I definitely held preconceived judgments about others and myself, right? About what I should and shouldn't do. I thought I'd be doing all this stuff before I became a parent, and this is kind of it. And then that all went out the bloody window
Yeah.
when I became a window. I was like, actually, you know what? I just need to get some stuff done. And
Mm,
it's like,
mm.
right, off you go, do that. But when you talk about the three types of screen time, it triggered the idea of, it's almost like this healthy diet analogy, which I really prescribe to, right? It's like when you think about, as you're saying, when you break down the screen time, umbrella of that, there's so much within that, and it's kind of, you need to have a healthy diet of those type of screen time. There is a time and a place. I'm sure as you talk about it, there's probably levels of productivity or benefit from each of those levels, but there is a place for each of those.
Mm,
Sometimes
mm.
there is a place for just sitting down and being a bit
Yep,
of a couch potato for a while, just
absolutely.
to release some time. But as you're saying, it's understanding if that's 90% of it, that's kind of like you having the junk food all the time. You want to have a little bit of that to enjoy yourself, because you don't want life to be completely boring. But at the same time, if that's 90%, then that's probably an unhealthy amount. And then where's the leafy greens and the proteins, etc., and the vitamins to kind of balance that out, so that there's a healthy balance. And I think that the key word that you mentioned is intentional, because very few of us adults, never mind kids, and we'll talk about the challenges probably in the next conversation around how we overcome us as parents trying to encourage, enforce that relationship with our kids, never mind us. So I think there's a lot there, but I do definitely ascribe to the idea of this healthy diet, or just understanding what the intentional balance is around the types of screen time that we provide to our kids, and when do we give our kids a screen? I mean, I guess that's probably a very individual conversation. Are you saying, like, it's, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, what each of our kids need, and that's a very individual one. I know some of our friends where there's one spectrum where they give their kids absolutely no screen time. And I've seen others that kind of have TV on all the time. And I think within each of those, you'll see healthy and unhealthy ones. There'll be the people that have it on the time that their kids are actually fine, because it's become like white noise and they're okay. They can go in and come out whenever they want to. And conversely, the ones that have zero, they don't know what they're missing out on. But I do wonder, there's almost, um, you're going to let a kid in the sweet shop at some point, and they're going to just go, you're not equipping them to handle it. We all know that the future will be more digital, we'll have more screens. So my personal view is, it's about not banning it. This is my opinion. It's about developing a healthy relationship with it, because the more, we all know, like the forbidden fruit, the Pandora's box. It's like, the more you can't have something, the more you want it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just like human
Human
nature,
nature. Absolutely.
right? So that's my view. But talk to me about, there's a few things that when we break down, again, why this is such an important topic, and we're starting to see the impact in our teens, and we're kind of saying, well, hey, here are the warning flags, the red flags, that to say, hey, here's what we're doing. Like, I know socially, I've seen that, where I think we talk about the skills of the future, and I was lucky to have the Lego Group as a client back in my consulting days. And I think they're a wonderful
Yeah.
company, and they talk about learning through play. And I think the idea of, again, this brick is not just a brick, it can be anything. You can imagine it to be a toy, it could be a car, it could be a train. Like, you're using your imagination. And they kind of have a similar construct where you've got the typical followed by numbers to build this thing, which is the kind of the one-way instructional, you're working through a problem to create this lovely thing, and it's figuring out spatial things like that. But there is also the ones where they actually encourage you to break it down, and then you can play with it as you want, the free play, which is more aligned with more maybe the scratched AI. You're creating something of your own volition, and it's just free play. And there are different skills that both of those have value in doing. And there was, I forget, I forget which organization, but they published what the skills of the future were likely to be. What are the most high value, high benefit skills that we want our kids to develop in future? And we think about what skills are we losing. I do feel there's a healthy element of, like, again, critical problem solving, probably something around like leadership and team connections, and having personal, like the ability to connect and have a meaningful conversation is going to be important in future, right? I'll have to find the direct quote of exactly what skills there are, because I think it's a very interesting look at what shifts have happened, right? What was valuable back then and what will be valuable in future. It's really interesting to see what these organizations see as the most valuable ones, and what are we losing as given the environment changes and the technological shifts that we have in society today. So I just think that's very interesting to see the shifts and again, why it's so important to have something like Unplugged Tots, because what are the gaps in skills that is looking to fill, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a huge element. So I think there was a big study from the WEF, World Economic Forum.
That's right. That's the one.
Very, very much along those lines. And I think a lot of it was critical thinking, analytical thinking. I think collaboration was definitely up there, and this ability to be human and understand what actually being human is, and connecting with people.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we kind of say that. I was at the BET event, which is a kind of a British education technology trade show for three days in Excel in London. And it just struck me, Patrick, that there was so much tech, so much AI. And as I was walking around, I was thinking, where are the kids in all of this? Where is the core, the soul of what education actually is? The children, the laughter, the play. We're AI is brilliant and tech is brilliant. I'm not denying it. It's an enabler for change. It can be a force for good. But in pushing AI and technology so soon into a child's life, again, what are we displacing in doing that?
Yeah.
We are at risk of pushing them into siloed learning, when actually what we need to be doing is bringing them out into collaborative learning, so that when they get to years maybe more kind of secondary school age, they have a complete toolkit of how to be human, how to talk, how to listen, but not how to listen, how to understand, how to spot the problems, understand the problems, work out the problems.
Absolutely.
When you take all these skills and then you marry them with the amazing tech that I saw at this event, then we are potentially building amazing problem solvers of tomorrow, rather than just really good ones.
I agree. No, I think it's fascinating. I did MIT talk about collective intelligence, not about artificial intelligence. Collective intelligence is how do man and machine work better together. So 1 and 1 equals 3, as opposed to what's happening. And again, I'm guilty of this, where we outsource so much of the problem solving to ChatGPT or something like that. And so as a result, we just erode our own cognitive abilities. And so I've got the study here. The World Economic Forum is a good. It's an accessible read.
It is, yeah.
Talk about the core skills of the future. Now, this is a couple of years out of date, but it's showing you where it's going. And what they have is emerging skills, out of focus skills, core skills in 2030, and steady skills. And the top right quadrant, like if you imagine your 2x2, on top right, you've got actually, it's about, they have a few different categories, things like cognitive skills, engagement, management, technology skills, self-efficacy, etc. Top right is resilience, flexibility, and agility. You've got in there AI and big data. You've got technological literacy, so that is important to develop. But you've also got things in there like analytical thinking, leadership and social influence, curiosity and lifelong learning.
That is critical. It's one of the backbones of Unplugged Tots.
Tell me about that. Tell me
Well,
about that.
how are we supposed to instill a love of learning if we just keep giving our children answers?
Yes.
We have to give our children the opportunity to be curious, to explore, to question things, to work things out for themselves. I will never forget. I'm going to go on a little tangent here. So my little one was, what would she have been? She must have been 6. And I went for a picnic with a load of friends, and there was this massive tree, and all the kids were climbing this tree. So she was 6. And she went the furthest up this tree than any of the other kids. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, there was no way that I could get my child. There was no way that I was climbing this tree. And I thought, this is a lesson in curiosity. This is a lesson in resilience. And this is a lesson in testing your risk capacity.
Yes.
Luckily, I didn't end up in hospital with her. She was absolutely fine. She came down. And she said, I got really scared, Mummy, but I knew I had to get down and I had to just stay calm and work my route down. I had to kind of pre-plan my route. And I'm like, hon, you just did the biggest and best problem solving that you could have ever done in your life, and you're 6.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. As parents, I mean, in hindsight, I probably would have told her to come down a little bit earlier. But in hindsight, I think also she's learning more by pushing herself more to do these kinds of things. And I think as parents, we need to sit on our hands and keep our mouths shut a little bit more to let our children have those opportunities for risk. And, swinging on the swings at perhaps that little bit too high, or climbing on the climbing frame that little bit too high, to test their boundaries.
Yeah. I'll never forget something I heard, and it was a really good question. Like, would you rather have a safe kid or a strong kid? Right? And I was like, I thought about that, and obviously you kind of said, well, of course, every parent wants to keep their kids safe. And then the conversation, well, if you can keep them safe because you can stop them as a parent. That's going to be our instinct. Keep my kids safe, obviously. Who wouldn't want to have the safe kid or keep their kids safe? But the reality is, a kid that you keep safe forever will never be strong, and as a result, will be unsafe.
Yeah.
And then that kind of really clicked for me.
Yeah.
And next question: how do you create a strong kid? Well, they have to be exposed to some element of danger, and they have to be allowed to figure that out for themselves. Now, obviously, I'm not going to let my kid run in front of a bus to be like, let's be strong.
Exactly.
But there's a spectrum in there, and I think we can all see ourselves in that, where we've maybe been a bit overprotective and over micromanaging and over parents, and then maybe you don't give your kid a knife in the early days. But I do remember I've also heard other people where they do encourage like bushcraft and like show a kid how to handle, like that's your personal call. But actually, in bushcraft, I know some people that they are teaching their kids how to use a penknife, because actually, wouldn't it be good that they learn how to use this? Now, again, controversial or other, that's your decision how you want to do it. But the point I can certainly prescribe to is the idea that I would like to have strong kids in order so that they are safe for themselves, and they don't, eventually, and that's what I want my kids to become in future. So that balance between, and it's the same thing with online safety, with screen time, with knowing how to manage those situations, because I'm not always going to be here. We're not always going to be here. And so long as I am here, I'm going to try and show you and create these environments to allow you to explore that risk in a safe way-ish, right? But at some point, who grows the fastest? It's the people that have to, right? I know we all know, I'm probably that as well. Like, we all know the 40-year-old man child that never grew up because
Yeah.
mum and dad does everything and does all his washing, right?
Yeah.
I'm probably there's an element of me in that, right? But I also know that I like being able to know that I can cope with my own things. And again, it's just not about me. It's not a counseling session, but it's about, this is about what we want for our kids. And it's that
Yeah,
mindset shift that
absolutely.
I think I love when I hear you speak about what you're trying to create and why it's beneficial is we all want to have strong kids that are therefore safe, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's where I go,
Yeah. And it's also it's safe for them to feel safe, but also safety in watching their peers as well, I think, because I think we have this um opportunity now to actually show children what community can actually feel like. We've touched a little bit on the social media ban just under 16s, and it's like they're on it because they want a community. They want to feel love. They like watching content because they are interested in this content. And it's this thing of we are human beings that want a connection with other human beings. And so let's facilitate that opportunity,
Yeah,
but do it in a safe environment.
yeah. So do you have an opinion then on the ban in Australia? We don't have to go there, but I was wondering if you have an opinion.
I do. I think it's really, again, it's nuanced. Um,
Yes, I agree. I agree.
I think social media as a construct, when it first began, and I remember when, Facebook, LinkedIn, I remember when it came out. I'm of that generation.
Mm,
Um, and it was marketed as a way to connect with people. And I
yeah.
have, we met through LinkedIn. We met through a
Yes.
connection on LinkedIn.
Yes. Yes.
And it has been a fantastic facilitator of that. There are dark sides to it though, as we know.
Yes.
And I think because now it's become so commercial and it's become a bit of a beast, I think,
Yes.
because it's become so commercial, it's become
Yeah.
unmanageable. And I think
Yes.
that's why we are now at a point where we have to impose
Mm,
bans because the companies that are in charge of social media are so driven financially that they don't necessarily have this moral code that
yeah.
we
Yeah.
would want them to have. And so
Yeah.
there has to be some guardrails around it to protect our children because
Good.
with AI we don't know now what's AI generated and what's not, and
Yeah.
the lines get very, very blurred. I've got a 12-year-old. you know I am about to enter this whole world of teenage life,
Fun
teenage
time.
motherhood. Yeah,
Fun
and I mean
time.
she's great. She's awesome. We have given her a smartphone. She doesn't have any social media because A, she's not bothered, and B, we tell her about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And she's
Yeah.
like, Mum,
Good.
I just don't want it. But that's the point, Patrick, is education.
Good. I really like the way that you've answered that question, Hannah, because again, it goes back to that safe versus strong spectrum, right? There's going to come a point where this is just unsafe, and there has
Yeah.
to be guardrails, and you know that's where the ban comes in. I'm also of the view that when you ban something, it becomes more desirable, and it's more about education, which is the strong view, right? But there's something in between, so there's never. I get it. I've got my own view on it, but there's never going to be a right or wrong.
Hmm.
You don't want to have a free for all where we're exposing people to like real dangers of the web. And we've all seen adolescents and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, a blanket ban where it's like, well, now you're treating us like kids, right? Or adults, and that desire for community. And we often talk about the value of online communities and offline communities for mothers, right?
Yes.
Because it's a great place to find your tribe. Because maybe
Absolutely.
your local entity or your local group, just you don't have those connections because you are limited in who you can reach out to.
Absolutely.
Whereas online, you can really find those people that are really your tribe. There are also those other online communities where actually it's quite dark, right? So again, it's everything in between. That's probably the challenge because it's such a nuanced conversation. and everyone has their own relationship with these things. And again, even as parents, never mind the kids, we have a dysfunctional addiction to
Yeah,
these things as well.
yeah,
So I think that's I don't want to labor too much on that, because again, I really want this to focus on the work you're doing, and talk again. I think we can think about rounding out this conversation and really going into, if we, I think in this conversation we really explored, well, touched the surface rather, of this problem with screens, and being aware of the context, the layout, etc., and just an appreciation that, look, tomorrow is going to be even more screen focused than it is today. So hopefully this conversation gives a bit of education around awareness, and some of the factors that go into the nuance of screen time, and why the need for this exists. Where I'd love to go next with you in the next conversation will be like, okay, what do we do about it? So any parting thoughts from you, Hannah, before we run out this conversation?
yeah. I have got a big point to make, and I did kind of touch on it. This is mums and parents out there right now. This is your opportunity to just relax your shoulders and just think, actually, I'm doing the best I can,
Yes.
because we are all doing the best that we can, given the situations that we have. Cut yourself some slack. There is an awful lot of noise out there about screens. No one knows what's going on in your life. I think that's the one thing that I really want to get across is we are all just navigating our own way with screens. We can have a knowledge and an awareness that, the screen use for a 0 to 2s is not good. There are guidance notes out there from World Health Organization. But stop feeling guilty, because
Good.
that's not helping anyone.
I'm so glad you said that, Hannah. And I always say, like, healthy mum, healthy baby, right?
Absolutely.
Healthy parents. I give myself in that, 'cause I'm not a mum. But I think, the anxiety we place around that, our kids feed off. They
Yep.
sense that, right? Um, and again, I think it might be, if I think about the friend that has the TV on all the time, it's because there's a comfortable relationship with that. They're not anxious, and I think anxiety is a bigger issue than it is sometimes the screen time sometimes. So I think I'm really glad that you said that. I think it's a really helpful. Yes, we want to raise awareness of the problem. There is a problem, but they're also like, it's a manageable problem, and it's one that we all share. I mean, show me one parent that doesn't deal with this, right? So I think it's
Absolutely.
saying it's more important that as a new mum, you again cut yourself some slack, and it's a challenge that we're all working through. And this conversation just raises the fact that everyone's dealing with it, right? So thank you for making that point. I think it's a really important point to land for this conversation.
Thank you.
So let's round out there. Um, Before I go, please tell people more about, if they don't hear the next conversation, please tell them about where to find your work and you, Hannah, or tell where to find.
Okay, so I am on website. My website is unpluggedtots.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn, on Instagram and Facebook. I do have monthly chats, kind of drop-in chats for free. It's usually the second Thursday of the month, school holidays depending, at 11:30 for an hour, and it's literally a no judgment zone. It's completely, shame-free, guilt-free. It's just chew the fat over parenting, digital use, tech skills, play-based fun with your kids, and it is the most favorite point of my month. I
Oh,
absolutely love it,
incredible.
because it's an opportunity for folk to just, literally, Patrick, relax their shoulders and breathe that sigh of relief.
Good. What an incredible resource. Thank you, Hannah.
You're
Let's
very
round this
welcome.
out on, and we'll be back in the next conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.